Welcome to this second lecture, the economic problem, scarcity and choice. So here we want to look at certain key concepts in economics. Actually, there's no economics without the concept of scarcity and choice. These are the two most basic concepts in economics everyone should be comfortable with. Now, what do we mean by scarcity? Scarcity occurs when the things we want exceeds our means. We generally talk of scarcity as resources being limited in supply. So we want so many things. Think about it. You go along St. Catherine, you see lots of things you will want to buy, but you don't have enough resources to buy those things. The province of Quebec or the country of Canada may want to build more schools, may want to provide more resources to the citizens, but the resources are limited, so we talk of scarcity. As a result of scarcity, or as a result of the limited resources we have, we need to make a choice. We want to have many things, build more roads, more schools, we want to provide more green technology. However, with the limited resources we have, or with the scarce resources, we need to make a choice. And a choice occurs when we give up something for another. Now, when we talk of opportunity cost, we are looking at the alternative that is given up when a choice is made. Now, it's important to note that we are not talking of any alternative given up. Generally, let's take, for example, right now you are watching this video. If you had not been watching this video, there are about 10 things you could have been doing. Now, if you take those 10 things and you rank them, you will find that they don't have the same level of importance to you. It's a subjective thing. So when you rank it, what comes first to you will likely be this video. What comes second is actually what you gave up, because if you were not watching this video, you would have been doing what comes second on your list. Now, when we move on, this takes us into a deeper understanding of what opportunity cost is. So limited resources generally have alternative uses. For example, your time has alternative uses, so you have to choose. So choices have to be made on how to use resources. In other words, among the alternative uses for our resources, which one are we going to choose? Costs are incurred when choices are made, and opportunity cost is one of what is incurred. So scarcity forces us to make choices, and when you make a choice, it means you've given up something for another, and what you gave up is the opportunity cost of making that choice. So opportunity cost is the cost of using a resource in terms of its best alternative use. We will talk more about that. It is the best foregone alternative. It's not any foregone alternative, but the best foregone alternative. So if you rank it, this is exactly what comes after the choice you've made. So what is given up when a decision is made is the opportunity cost. Now this takes us into the concept of cost-benefit analysis. So any decision you make have cost and benefit. In other words, when you make a choice, you give up something for another. So individuals, firms, and governments, society weigh the cost and benefit of their decisions. Whatever choices they make, there is a cost. Something has to be given up in order for them to make that decision. So they always look at the cost of that decision and the benefits. Now, cost-benefit approach has to do with making a decision on the basis of comparing the net cost and benefit. So you look at your costs and you subtract the cost from the benefit. If it's positive, it means the benefits outweigh the costs, and if it's negative, it means it's more expensive, so you should not make that choice. So that's how most people or most societies go about making decisions. Now we want to move on to a new concept called production possibilities. Now, production possibilities, or PP, is the potential combination of goods and services that could be produced when resources are fully used with a given state of technology. So given a certain state of technology, what are the different combinations of goods and services you could produce if you fully use your resources? we will spend a bit more time looking at it. Now, the production possibility schedule is simply your production possibility placed in a table. However, in this class, we will spend much more time looking at production possibility curves. This shows production possibilities graphically. And there are two things to remember. Production possibility curve can be linear or it can be non-linear. It's important to know what's the implication when it's linear and what's the implication when it's non-linear. So here we are taking a look at the linear production possibility curve. You have different points. It goes from point A, B, C, D, E, and F. It's linear. You have a straight line. So as resources, so basically in this production possibility curve, we have two goods which are being produced, DVD players and computers. So if you take a certain set of resources given a certain state of technology, now if you put all your resources in producing DVD players, you can produce 15 million. And if you put all your resources in producing computers, you can produce 5 million. Now, if you decide to put part of your resources in producing, let's say to move from point A to B, it means you are giving up 15 minus 12. So you are giving up 3 million DVD players in order to have basically 4 million computers. So you always want to look at, if you efficiently use all your resources, what can you produce in terms of the order, or what can you give up? So here you are looking at a combination that is simply DVD players and 0 computers. At point B, you are looking at 12 million DVD players and 1 million computers. Point C, you are talking of 9 million DVD players and 2 million computers. Now, if you start here, in order for you to produce 1 million computers, how many DVD players do you have to give up? Because when you start here, you are producing 15 million DVD players and 0 computers. In order for you to produce 1 million computers and 12 million DVD players, you have to give up 3 million computers. So we are looking at what you give up in terms of, well, in order to produce something, what do you have to give up? So any point along this curve shows the different combination you can produce. It says a linear production possibility curve illustrates constant opportunity cost. So as resources are shifted from producing one product to the other, opportunity cost remains constant. You are always giving up the same quantity of DVD players to produce 1 extra million. It's not changing. It's always, you can see, from 15 to 12, from 12 to 9, it's always the same amount you are giving up when you are producing 1 extra million of computers. So here we say, as resources are shifted from producing one product to the other, opportunity cost remains constant. Resources are equally efficient in producing the 2 products. So everywhere, it's always the same amount that is given up to gain a certain amount. Now, let's move on to a different type, the case where it is concave. So a concave production possibility curve illustrates increasing opportunity costs. I repeat, it illustrates increasing opportunity costs. Here we are looking at producing smartphones and computers. And at this point, if you have to produce 15 million smartphones, it means you produce 0 computer. Now, if you decide to give up, you can give up, let's approximate and say maybe, let's say 1 million. If you give up 1 million smartphones, then you can produce 1 million computer. Now, to go from B to C, you can see that you may have to give up 2 million smartphones just to produce 1. And from C to D, you may have to give up 3 million to produce 1. You can see that to produce the same amount, as you move on along the concave production possibility curve, you have to give up more and more smartphones to produce the same amount of computers. So here we are saying resources are not equally efficient in producing the two goods. Therefore, opportunity cost increases as resources are switched from producing one product to the other. So when you have a concave production possibility curve, it illustrates increasing opportunity cost. Now, the slope of the production possibility curve shows the opportunity cost. The slope of a concave production possibility curve increases as the production of the good on the x-axis increases. Now, it's important to note that we even have the law of increasing opportunity cost when you are dealing with a concave production possibility curve. The law shows the rise in the opportunity cost of a product as its production increases. Now, let's take a look at concepts associated with the production possibility curve. These are very important concepts. You have efficiency. You are operating efficiently when you are producing anywhere along your production possibility curve. Efficiently, why? Because you are using all the resources. Given the resources you have and your technology, you are using all the resources. However, any point below your production possibility curve means you are operating inefficiently. It's like a student who has 5 hours of studies per day but decides to use 2 hours and daydream for the other hours. No, you want to efficiently use all the time you have. Now, full employment is any point along the curve. Full employment, why? Because you are fully utilizing all the resources you have. Scarcity is any point above the curve. It is unattainable because the curve shows that you are using all your resources efficiently. Now, to go above the curve, you don't have the resources to be above the curve. That is why we say scarcity, because it indicates limitation of your resources. For example, this point is not attainable. It shows scarcity. Now, choice is simply a movement along the curve. When you go from one combination to another, you are still operating efficiently, but it's your choice. It shows you can choose to produce any combination and it's still efficient. Now, in economics, we have the concept of free lunch. We say there's no free lunch. In other words, you cannot just increase the amount of smartphones you are producing at no cost. You generally have to give up something in order to obtain more of another. You can't just obtain more at no cost. That's the whole idea behind it. Now, let's move on to a shift in the production possibility curve. You can have an outward shift of your production possibility curve or an inward shift. An outward shift means you can now produce more goods and services. An inward shift means you can produce less. So you can produce less. Maybe there's a catastrophe. Maybe there was an earthquake that destroyed your resources. However, you can produce more if maybe there's a technological revolution and suddenly you are able to produce more. Now, a movement along is very important. So when you move from one point to another, it's a movement along, and you can choose between capital or consumer goods. If you decide to produce more capital goods, in other words, you shift your resources into the production of capital goods, this enables the production possibility curve to increase because capital goods enables what we call economic growth. But if, just think about it personally, if you make money and you decide to invest a large proportion, it means in future you will likely have more money. But if you consume all what you have, then in future you may face challenges. So an increase in the quantity or quality of resources and the increase in technology causes the curve shifts to shift outwards, allowing economic growth. Now, let's look at some fundamental microeconomic questions. Fundamental microeconomic questions, and it is related to the use of resources. Remember, resources, that's the key. We started by saying scarcity is the reason why we have economics, because economics is looking at how different individuals, groups, or societies or businesses, how they go about making choices on how to use their scarce resources. Now, we have some fundamental questions that need to be answered. For example, what to produce, okay? What types of goods and services are produced? You have to make that choice. Given, with your resources, you can produce, you have different alternatives, but you have to make a choice what you will produce. You also have to make a choice how much to produce given your scarce resources. So how much of each type is produced? So think of maybe housing. What do you want to produce? Maybe you want to produce houses. Now, how much do you want to produce? Here it says, okay, what type? You may decide between condo, between low-income houses, high-income houses, and so on. How much of each type do you want to produce is an important question. Now, if once you've decided that, how are you going to produce it? In other words, with what technology? How are the goods and the services produced? How are resources combined to produce a given level of output? Examine the method or technique of production. All of that you have to decide. These are microeconomic questions you need to answer with respect to the usage of your resources. Now, you also have to decide for who. Who is going to buy that condo? Who is going to buy the houses? Are you targeting low income? Are you targeting middle class, upper middle class? Or are you targeting the rich or the 1%? So all those questions have to be answered, and these are microeconomic questions. Now, we move on to a distinction. So macroeconomics is concerned with aggregates of the economy. For example, it's concerned with things like inflation, unemployment, the business cycle. So aggregate output, for example, is the total value of goods and services produced in the economy. We are going to see that when we cover the topic of GDP, and it affects the standard of living. It fluctuates regularly. So we have what is called the business cycle, which is the fluctuation in total output. Now, still you have some more macroeconomic issues. I'm going to change this title. This is not fundamental microeconomic questions. This has to do with macroeconomy mix. Unemployment, for example, is a condition in which people who are without work and are actively looking for work cannot find it. Inflation is a sustained increase in the average level of prices. We have cost of living, which is the amount of money required to buy a certain basket of goods and services. When we cover inflation, we are going to be talking about consumer price index and things like that. And when we look at the different activities in class, we are going to be looking at how to obtain data for unemployment, inflation, cost of living, and we will learn how to plot that data and interpret it. So inflation indicates a rise in the cost of living. Economic growth is an increase in the total output over time. In other words, you are looking at how GDP is increasing as well as potential GDP. Now, the world economy is very important because economic conditions in the world, in the rest of the world, affects the Canadian economy because we sell things in the rest of the world, we buy things, we trade with the rest of the world. So globalization is very important because it influences the Canadian economy. So we are going to move on to one of the key analysis tool, which is the circular flow diagram. So we want to talk about circular flow of income. It is simply a model that shows the flow of resources and income between firms and households. So we are assuming that the two main players are firms and households. Now, when we talk of households, what do we mean? It's simply a group of individuals living under the same roof making economic decisions. And what type of decisions do we mean? They decide what resources to sell and which goods and services to buy. Now, a firm is a business organization. They decide what resources to buy and which goods and services to sell. Now, it's important to remember when we talk of households, households are there to maximize households are there to maximize their satisfaction. Meanwhile, firms are there to maximize profit. Now, a market is simply a mechanism that facilitates the exchange of resources, goods, and services between firms and households. Let's talk a bit more about markets. There are different types of market in an economy. You can narrowly distinguish them between factor market and product market. So when we talk of factor market, or the market of factors of production, or the market of resources, this is a market where resources are bought and sold. When we talk of resources, what do we mean? The main resources in economics are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Now, when we talk of product market, this is a market where goods and services are bought and sold. Now, the firms bring goods to the market and households buy them. The factor market, households own the factors of production, they bring it to the market, and firms buy those factors of production in order to produce goods and services. Now, let's look at the circular flow diagram. Now, in this circular flow diagram, you have the two players, you have firms, you have households, and you have the two markets. The market of factors, you see households, they take factors to the market, they sell it, and firms buy it. The firms buy the resources and take it to firms, and here they use it to produce goods and services. When they produce goods and services, they take it to the product market, they sell it, and households buy those goods and services and take it and of course consume it and then go back and sell their resources and so on. Now, on the other hand, what happens is that households, when they sell resources, they come back with the income from resources. Now, they use the income to go to the product market and buy their goods and services. For example, if you are working in a Tim Horton, you make money, you now use the money to go and buy your groceries, to go out and chill, and so on. So this is what we are talking about. Households, when they sell their resources, they bring back the money home, then they take it to the product market, they buy goods and services, and they take it home. On the other hand, firms, when they sell goods and services, the firm's revenue, they bring the revenue back to the firm and then go to the factor market to buy resources and come back to produce goods and services. So that is a simplified circular flow diagram. Now you can make it a bit more complex by increasing financial intermediaries like banks, increasing the government into it. You can also increase the rest of the world and so on and so forth. But at this point, we just want to present the simplified version of it so that you can understand what it is all about. So yeah, have fun and I'll watch out for the next activity.